sons and daughters.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aurora Smedley podcast, where I speak with you about what the world needs to hear. And in today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the seasons of our emotional world and the seasons of our life, and therefore the appreciation and gratitude that we need to have in all of these seasons, not just the ones that feel good. So I'm going to be going over something that I discovered in traditional Chinese medicine, which is 5-element theory. But 5-element theory, I'm going to be simplifying it into my own perception of how some things work. And this is essentially the understanding of the 4 seasons, understanding seasons and cycles and what this reveals in our emotional world. So for those of you who are listening in audio, I am going to be showing some images, though this is going to be fairly palatable just as audio. So if you'd like to view the video version of this, you can change the settings on Spotify, or you can view this on YouTube. So I'm going to be discussing the 4 seasons of our emotional world. In a previous episode, I discussed the quantum leap process, and I pointed out that there's certain emotional responses that we're having during this whole process, right? But now I'm going to be going into the simple understanding of the seasonal nature of reality and how this impacts our everyday life. So essentially, in our life, we go through seasons, right? We go through seasons of loss, we go through seasons of joy, we go through seasons of frustration, and all of these seasons are critical for our upward development. Something that is common in the Western world is that we only see seasons that feel good as being valid seasons, and that we see that we must always feel good in order for our experience to be valid. So our society really emphasizes that we have to feel good all the time. If you ever feel bad, then this is bad, and you need to hide it if you are feeling sad. And you also should not feel sad in front of other people or angry in front of other people because you don't want to inconvenience them. And in my view, this is actually a destructive way of viewing things, because we naturally through our life will experience joy and loss and sorrow and happiness and ecstasy and all of these different things. These are all essential parts of the fabric of life. And so none of them is more valid than the other. Of course, we like to feel our good feelings, but the periods of difficulty, of challenge, are also incredibly essential to our development. And without feeling our sadness and our pain, we are robbing ourselves of the growth that wants to come in through that process. So I'm just going to overview these. The 4 seasons, as you know, I hope, are spring, summer, fall, and winter, right? And the thing about Western society is that we always want to be in spring and summer. And then as soon as fall and winter is happening, we think that something's wrong. And we invalidate it and we say that this is a problem, right? As soon as things start to decline, as soon as things go into some form of fallow stage where there's not really much happening and things are kind of frozen up over the winter, as soon as that happens in Western society, we start freaking out because something is wrong, something is incorrect. I must always be in growth. I must always be in expansion. I must always be in joy, right? And as soon as we experience the retreat of the tides or the low tide or the winter time and things are frozen over and things are moving more slowly, and you might be in this period of stasis or seeming lack of progress, right? But these periods of our life are critical to our development. So yeah, let me go through these. In the spring season, the energy is rising. You are expanding in energy. You are feeling more and more energy. And there's a lot of action that is being taken. You're taking action. There's movement. There's progress. There's flowers blooming. There's birds are coming out, and there's a lot of things and action and life taking place, right? This is an exciting time. The springtime is always an exciting time, right? And in your life, what this looks like is you are taking aligned action, you are directed, you are moving towards your goals. This is a very Western perspective, and this is great, right? Then the summer season is a season of joy. The summer season is characterized by a sense of arrival. You have arrived, you've made it, you're seeing the fruition of your efforts. You have gotten to the spot that you were intending to get to, and that feels good. You feel joy, you feel happiness, you feel expansion. Everything is at its height. All of the plants are in their full glory. Perhaps you're harvesting grapes. Like, it's a good time, right? Then we enter into the fall season. In your life, this looks like loss. This looks like a pulling back. This looks like maybe you lost money. This looks like maybe things are slowing down. And at this point, you're like, what is happening? I arrived. I did it. And now things are falling apart and things are deconstructing and things are going wrong. And perhaps the opportunities that I had have gone away. And this period of your life, this fall period of your life, is kind of when it feels like the tide is going out, right? And so at this point, you might start grasping. You might start trying to pull on the tide to keep it in, but it's fruitless because it's falling out between your fingers, right? The tide is going out. Winter is coming. And the things are going wrong in your life, or opportunities are going away. Perhaps, you are losing a relationship. The energy is going out, it seems, right? It seems like you're losing out on things. And so at this point, you might feel resistance. You might feel grief. And at this point, you need to surrender. You need to let go. Let go of what you're losing. Recognize that everything that you're losing is an illusion, that all of this physical reality is an illusion, that all of this, in the end, is here for your benefit. In this loss is the opportunity for you to trust in the situation. Then after the tide has gone out completely, then you're in a low tide phase and it's winter time and things seem to have frozen up. And this period is so critical actually for the preparation of the next springtime in your life. It's critical because there's this phase where things almost need to process the previous summer and to take a rest and to prepare for the next growth, right? And so if you try to force your way through the winter phase too quickly, you try to accelerate past winter, right? It means that the roots are less strong going into the next growth phase. The roots are less strong. The summer cannot reach its height as effectively. And that harvest season can't happen as effectively because you did not allow the field to lay fallow in your life. You have to allow the winter period in your life to take place, to honor that period of emptiness, to honor that period of gap, so that you create the space, so that you create the stronger roots, so that you create this foundation through which your next growth phase can emerge. And this is the value of leaning into this winter phase, okay? Is the value of leaning into this winter phase is the preparation for your next growth period in your life. And that is when we bring ourselves again to the spring phase, and then you go through a period of growth and expansion, and then arrival, and then contraction, right? Contraction, loss, and then you reach the winter phase again, right? So the point of all of this is recognizing that any time that you are going through expansion and contraction cycles in your life, as far as you are expanding, you're growing, you are making it, you are totally looking super awesome, versus you're contracting, you're losing, you've lost, you're going through health problems, you've lost a relationship, you've lost your job, maybe you had sales opportunities, business opportunities, and they went away, and then you reach this period of silence. This period of silence, this in-between phase, is the foundation on which the next growth period is built. What I hope by overviewing all of this with you is for you to gain greater respect and appreciation for every single phase that your life has to offer, recognizing that all of these phases are part of your growth trajectory, and that even in the loss, even in the stillness, that is the growth phase. That is the growth. That is the preparation for the next cycle. So the next thing that I want to discuss in this seasonal framework is understanding the emotions and the emotional responses that are tied to different parts of this cycle. So the first thing to understand is that you see at each part of this cycle, we have a different default emotional response, which is tied to the energy of that phase, right? So in springtime is the expansion part of the cycle. The expansion part of the cycle can reveal as anger or frustration when blocked, right? When there is an obstruction to the expansion, there is an anger, there's a frustration that comes about so that you can break the chains, so that you can expand past the things that are limiting you, so that you can open up into the next expansion phase. And when the expansion is supported, then there is aligned action taking place. There is assertiveness taking place. There is assertion. There is directed movement. This is all characteristic of the spring phase. It's directed, intentional, aligned movement towards the realization of your goals. And then if there is obstruction to that, that is where we feel anger or frustration. So once you have reached the height of the expansion phase, the height of the expansion phase is when you get to summer, right? And so typically once you reach summer, there's a sense of joy, there's a sense of arrival, there's a sense of fullness, of wholeness, of completion, of community, of all of these lovely things, right? The other side of being at the peak of this expansion phase is kind of like anxiety or overextension, essentially. You're going too many places, you're overextended because so much is going on and so much is happening. And you're fully extended, you're overextended. This is kind of the unbalanced version of the expansion of summer, is anxiety, is running around trying to do everything, is overextending yourself, right? So the attentiveness that we bring to this situation is knowing where to spend our energy, knowing where to direct our energy, to cutting back on our FOMO, because all of the opportunities are coming to us. This is where we have to intentionally choose the things that we want in our life while we are in this part of the phase, or when we are in that phase. The next phase is the fall part of the cycle, the autumn phase. The autumn phase is grief and loss. And The antidote to that grief and loss is acceptance and surrender. You're losing, things are being shedded, and you let go. You let go. You surrender. You allow yourself to lose everything. You allow everything to be taken away. You surrender to this process. You let go of the things, and the things they float away, right? If you try to keep holding on, gripping on to the past reality with for dear life, and trust me, I've done that many times. You're trying to grab onto your former reality with all of your might. This is where the problems start happening, is your resistance to a process that is naturally happening. The fall must always come. Autumn always arrives, and so you need to allow yourself to let go as the process happens. So the next part of the phase is the winter phase, right? And the emotional response to the winter phase is fear and worry, because now everything is left, everything that needed to go has gone, and now you're in this kind of empty phase where there's nothing there. The movement and expansion and growth and fullness that were there before are gone. And now you aren't really sure if spring is going to come again. Is spring going to come? Wow, I do not know. I do not know if spring is going to arrive yet. And so that is where fear comes in. This is where worry comes in. This is where doubts can come in. All of these things start creeping in. And so this is the point where you need to inject courage. You need to inject trust and faith in a period of complete uncertainty. A period of uncertainty, a period of lack, perhaps, a period of not having, a period where things have gone dark. And so this is the period where you inject trust into the situation. You inject certainty into the situation, right? So I've gone over the 4 seasons, what they represent energetically, and then also the emotional responses that we have. And then when you've trusted long enough, then the next spring begins to emerge, right? But you have to trust and surrender and allow that process to take place so that the next emergence can happen. So I've gone over the different seasons and the energetic characteristics of the seasons, what you can expect in your life during these different seasons, and then also what your emotional response is during these seasons and what the spiritual practice can be in these situations as you strengthen yourself to the variety of experiences that life brings you. So once again, I just want to draw our attention to the fact that all of these seasons are essential to our personal development. These periods of seeming loss are critical to our next expansion phase. So we always need to accept the winters, accept the autumn with understanding, with trust, with faith. That this is a cycle that is occurring that is going to develop you for the next phase of your cycle. So with that, thank you for your comments on my work. I appreciate your attentiveness and hope that this has been of service to you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.